if I told you that some of the tractors entering Burkina Faso, some of the machines being used to grow more food, the new trade opportunities open outside Africa, and the country's fight for security may all be connected to a much bigger plan? Because when you look at these things one by one, they seem completely different. A tractor is about farming, an armored vehicle is about war, a factory is about business, and a trade agreement with China is about international relations. But put them together and something very interesting begins to appear. Captain Ibrahim Traoré may be trying to build a chain, secure the land, grow the food, process the food and raw materials inside Burkina Faso, sell more finished products abroad, bring more money into the country, and then use that stronger economy to protect the country and build even more. It sounds simple, but if Burkina Faso can actually make it work, it could change the way we understand what is happening in the country. Because for decades, many African countries have faced the same painful problem. We have the gold, but somebody else makes more money from it. We grow the cotton, but somebody else turns it into clothes. We produce cocoa, sesame, shea, livestock, and other valuable products. But too often, the bigger money comes after these products have already left Africa. And then we use the little money we earn from selling raw materials to buy expensive finished goods back from abroad. Think about that for a moment. You grow the cotton, you sell the cotton, someone else turns it into fabric, someone else turns that fabric into a shirt, and then that shirt can come back to Africa at several times the value of the cotton that originally left the continent. So the problem is not that Africa has nothing. The problem is what happens to what Africa has. And that is where Burkina Faso's story becomes interesting. Because Traore is not only talking about sovereignty in speeches. His government is trying to connect sovereignty to food, machines, factories, trade, and security. And one country is becoming increasingly important in that story: China. But there is a question we must ask from the beginning. Is Burkina Faso using China to become more independent? Or could Burkina Faso simply replace one powerful foreign partner with another? This is a question we are going to follow throughout this video, because the answer is not found in speeches. It will be found in what Burkina Faso actually builds. This is AfriArise. If you want more African stories examined from an African point of view, subscribe to this channel. And now, let us start with the first part of this chain: security. For Burkina Faso, development cannot begin with a factory. It cannot even begin with a tractor. It begins with whether people can safely live, farm, and move around in their own country. Imagine you're a farmer. The rainy season is coming. You have seeds. You have land. You know how to farm. Maybe the government even gives you a tractor. Wonderful. But there is one problem. The road to your village is unsafe. Trucks are afraid to come. Your family is worried about armed attacks. Maybe people from neighbor communities have already left their house. What exactly are you going to do with that tractor? This is why security and development cannot be separated in Burkina Faso. If a farmer cannot reach his land, agriculture suffers. If trucks cannot move safely, markets suffer. If businesses are afraid to invest, jobs suffer. If communities are displaced, schools, farms, and local businesses all suffer together. So when Burkina Faso spends money on security, that spending is not only connecting to the battlefield, it also connects the economy. A safe road can become an economic road. A secure village can become a farming village again. A protected transport route can allow food to reach a city, and a safer region can give businesses the confidence to invest. But here is the other side. Security also needs money. Soldiers need food. Vehicles need fuel and maintenance. Communication systems cost money. Hospitals cost money. Equipment costs money. Trainings cost money. A country cannot keep fighting an expensive security battle forever if its economy remains weak. So Burkina Faso faces two problems at the same time. It needs security to grow the economy, but it also needs a stronger economy to pay for security. That is the trap, and the only way out is to make both sides stronger together. This is why agriculture matters so much. Burkina Faso has a large rural population, and farming remains a major part of everyday life. Cotton, maize, sorghum, sesame, livestock, shea, fruits. These are not small things. They can feed people, they can create jobs, they can supply factories, and they can bring foreign money into the country, but only if the system around the farmer works. This is where Traore's push for agricultural machinery becomes important. We have seen his government put tractors and other farm equipment into the hands of producers. And yes, some of that equipment has come from China, but the tractor itself is not an agricultural revolution. Let me repeat that. A tractor itself is not an agricultural revolution. It makes a good photograph. It makes a good video. People cheer when hundreds of machines are lined up. But after the cameras leave, the real questions begin. Who will use them? Who will repair them? Where will spare parts come from? Can farmers afford fuel? Do they have good seeds? Do they have fertilizer? Is there irrigation? Can they store what they grow? Can they move it safely? And most importantly, who will buy the harvest? This is how we should judge agricultural transformation, not by how many tractors appear at the ceremony, but by what happens to the farmer after the ceremony. Imagine two farmers, both grow hundreds of bags of maize. Farmer number one has a warehouse nearby. He can store his maize and wait for a better price. There is good road to his village. A food processing company buys from his area. He has several buyers competing for his harvest. Farmer number two has no storage. The road is terrible. There is small processing plant nearby and he needs money immediately. So he sells quickly to the first middleman who appears. Same crop, same number of bags, completely different outcome. This is why the real agricultural revolution is not simply growing more food. It is building the whole chain around the food. And this takes us to the next part of Traore's strategy, factories. Because this may be where the biggest money is hiding. For years, African countries have been told to increase exports, but we do not always ask the most important question. Export what? Raw cotton or clothes? Raw sesame or bottled sesame oil? Shea nuts or finished cosmetics? Gold straight from the ground? Or more products and service connected to refining and processing? These choices matter. Let us use cotton. Burkina Faso can grow and sell the raw fiber. That creates some income. But imagine that cotton goes into Burkina factory. People work there. The cotton becomes yarn. Another factory turns that yarn into fabric. Another company makes uniforms, shirts, trousers, and other clothing. Someone designs the packaging. Someone transports the goods. Someone sells them. Banks finance businesses. Workers earn salaries. The government collects taxes. Now, compare that with putting raw cotton on a truck and sending it away. Can you see the difference? The same cotton can create a completely different economy depending on what happens before it leaves the country. And this does not need complicated economic language. It simply means this: do more with what you have before you sell it. That is a battle. Burkina Faso does not only need more exports, it needs more valuable exports. And this is where China suddenly becomes extremely important. Burkina Faso and China restored diplomatic relations in 2018. Since then, their relationship has grown. And by 2024, according to official Chinese figures, trade between the two countries have reached to about $741 million US. That sounds impressive until you look inside the number. China sold roughly $686 million worth of goods to Burkina Faso. Burkina Faso sold only $55 million worth of goods to China. Think about that. 686 million one way, 55 million the other way. That tells us something very important. Burkina Faso is buying far more from China than China is buying from Burkina Faso. Now, some would immediately say, you see, this is another dependency. But it is not always that simple. Because what exactly is Burkina Faso importing? If a country imports only phones, clothes, and finished consumer products and produces nothing new in return, that can become a problem. But if it imports tractors, factory machines, construction equipment, and technology that help it produce more tomorrow, then some of today's imports can become part of tomorrow's productive economy. The machine itself is not the final story. The question is what Burkina Faso does with the machine. Does a tractor increase food production? Does factory equipment help create a Burkinabe product? Does technical training create Burkinabe engineers? Does new infrastructure reduce the cost of doing businesses? Does foreign investment create local suppliers? If the answer is yes, then the relationship begins to look different. If Burkina Faso simply tries to buy and buy and buy while producing little for the Chinese market, then the trade gap will remain. And that brings us to one of the biggest opportunities now sitting in front of African countries, China's zero tariff policy. Burkina Faso was already among the African least developed countries covered by China's earlier zero tariff program. Then, from May 1st, 2026, China expanded zero tariff treatment across all 53 African countries with which it has diplomatic relations. Now, it sounds like a huge opportunity, and it is, but we need to understand what zero tariff actually means. It does not mean you can put anything on a plane in Ouagadougou, send it to Beijing, and Chinese buyers will immediately purchase it. No. Removing a tariff removes one barrier. It does not remove every barrier. Products still need to meet the required standards. Food needs to meet health and safety rules. Businesses need proper documentation. Products need to meet rules of origin. Exporters need packaging. They need transport. They need buyers. They need enough supply, and they need to compete with products coming from many other countries. So zero tariff opens the door. Burkina Faso still has to walk through it, and this is where I believe the real test begins. Imagine Burkina Faso grows more sesame. Good. Now imagine it exports the sesame raw. That creates some money, and if Burkinabe company cleans it, processes it, turns some of it into oil, packages it, brands it, and sells that finished product abroad, more steps happen inside Burkina Faso. More jobs stay inside Burkina Faso. More skills stay inside Burkina Faso. More businesses participate. More values remain inside the country. That is the opportunity. The same thinking can apply to shea, cotton, fruits, livestock products, and many other areas. But there is a danger. Burkina Faso could increase exports to China and still remain a raw material economy. And that will change the destination without changing the system. Yesterday, raw materials go mainly to one group of foreign markets. Tomorrow, raw materials go to China. But Burkina Faso still does the least profitable part of the work. If that happens, then very little has changed. The flag of the trading partner has changed. The structure has not. This is why industrialization is so important. And industrialization sounds like a big word, but the idea is very simple. Make things, process things, build things, repair things, package things, create products people are willing to pay more for. A country becomes stronger when more of those activities happen inside its borders. But factories need something else: electricity. A factory cannot run on switches. Machines need power. Cold storage needs power. Food processing needs power. Textile production needs power. Hospitals need power. Digital businesses need power. So if Burkina Faso wants a real manufacturing economy, reliable and affordable energy will be one of the biggest tests. Then there are the roads. Everything is connected. Roads connect farms to factories. Electricity keeps factories running. Security keeps roads open. Training gives factories workers. Trade gives factories customers. Finance allows businesses to grow. Remove one part and the chain becomes weaker. And that brings us to something I think does not get enough attention: When people discuss Traore, young people, Burkina Faso has a very young population that can become one of the country's greatest strengths or one of its greatest problems. A young population with skills and jobs is an economic engine. A young population without opportunities creates pressure. People become frustrated. Some leave. Some remain unemployed. Some become easier targets for armed groups and criminal networks. So when Burkina Faso talks about machines and factories, it must also talk about people. Who will repair the tractors? Who will operate the processing machines? Who will manage the tractors? Who will manage the factories? Who will test the food? Who will design the packaging? Who will build the software? Who will maintain the power system? Who will run the businesses? These jobs require skills. And this is another area where international partnerships, including cooperation with China, can help. Training, engineering, agriculture, technical education, manufacturing skills. But again, the goal should not be permanent dependence on foreign exports. The goal should be to learn. Because the best partnership is one that eventually makes you stronger. Think about it like this. If someone gives you a fish every day, you remain dependent on that person. If that person teaches you how to fish, you become more independent. But if that person teaches you how to build fishing boats, repair the engine, process the fish, package it and sell to the supermarkets, now we are talking about an economy. That is the level Burkina Faso has to reach. And this is where small businesses become extremely important. When people hear industrialization, they imagine huge factories. But a strong economy is not built only by giant companies. It is also built by thousands of smaller businesses. A company repairing tractors, a business making packaging, a transport company carrying crops, a small food processor, a clothing workshop, a company making animal feed, a warehouse business, a software company helping farmers find buyers. These businesses connect the economy together. Government can build roads, government can create policies, government can buy machines, but government cannot successfully run every shop, every factory, every farm, and every business. Private businesses must grow too. And for that to happen, they need access to money. This is another challenge. You can have a brilliant idea in Burkina Faso. You can know exactly how to turn local system into a product. But if a bank will not lend you money to buy the machine, the idea remains just an idea. So finance matters. Cheap and patient finance matters. Investment matters. And rules that allow businesses to grow without unnecessary obstacles matter. Now, let us make the story even bigger. Because Traore is not trying to do all of this alone. Burkina Faso is part of the Alliance of Sahel states with Mali and Niger. The AES began mainly as a security alliance, but it has grown beyond that. The three countries have pushed for deeper political, security, and economic cooperation. And if you look at the economic side carefully, the logic is easy to understand. Burkina Faso alone has a limited market. Mali alone has a limited market. Niger alone has a limited market. But connect the three economies more closely and businesses suddenly have access to more people. That matters when you are building factories. Imagine you want to build a factory in Burkina Faso. If you can only sell to one domestic market, maybe the numbers do not work. But if the same products can move more easily into Mali and Niger, the businesses becomes more attractive. This is why regional integration matters. A Burkinabe food company should be thinking beyond Ouagadougou. Can it sell in Bamako? Can it sell in Niamey? Can it eventually sell across other African markets? Can a textile company supply uniforms across the Sahel? Can livestock products move easily across borders? Can the three countries share energy projects? Can they build transport corridors together? Can they create stronger regional supply chains? These questions are bigger than politics. They are about whether the AES can become an economic space, not only a political statement, because sovereignty without production can become just a slogan. If you say you are independent, but you import nearly everything you use, how independent are you? If your farms depend completely on imported inputs, how independent are you? If your factories cannot operate without foreign technicians, how independent are you? If your economy collapses whenever one foreign country changes its policy, how independent are you? Real sovereignty has an economic side. You need the ability to feed yourself. You need the ability to produce. You need options. You need skills. You need markets. And you need enough strength to negotiate with other countries instead of simply accepting whatever they offer. This brings us back to China. China can be extremely useful to Burkina Faso. It has machinery, it has manufacturing experience, it has capital, it has a huge market, it has companies that can build infrastructure, and it is actively expanding economic ties across Africa. But China is not a charity. China has interests, just as France has interests, America has interests, Russia has interests, Turkey has interests, the Gulf states have interests, every serious country has interests, and Burkina Faso should have interests too. The question is not, is China good or bad? That is so simple. The better question is this: can Burkina Faso negotiate a relationship with China that serves Burkina Faso? That is what matters. If China companies build factories, how many Burkinabe workers are trained? If machines are imported, can local technicians maintain them? If Chinese companies buy agricultural products, can more processing happen inside Burkina Faso? If infrastructure is financed, what are the terms? If mining investment increase, how much value remains in the country? If technology comes in, is knowledge transferred? These are the questions that determines whether partnership becomes power. Because Africa has made these mistakes before. We sometimes celebrate foreign investment simply because money has arrived. But money entering a country does not automatically mean development. The details matter. Who owns that? Who gets the jobs? Who gets the contracts? Where do the profits go? What happens after the foreign companies leaves? What skills remain? What infrastructure remains? What debt remains? What local businesses were created? These are the questions, and Burkina Faso must ask them no matter who the partner is. France, China, Russia, America, anybody. If Traore's message is truly about sovereignty, then sovereignty must apply to every relationship. You cannot reject dependence on the West and then become completely dependent on the East. That would not be independence. That would simply be changing chairs. And this may be the most important part of this entire video. Traore's biggest challenge is not choosing the right foreign power. It is making Burkina Faso strong enough that it does not have to depend completely on any foreign power. That is much harder, but that is what real independence looks like. You work with China where China is useful. You work with another country where the country is useful. You build African partnerships. You strengthen the AES. You train your own people. You grow your own companies. You increase your own production. And slowly, you gain more choices. The more choices a country has, the harder it becomes for anyone to control it. But there is another reality we must not ignore. None of this will be easy. Security remains a huge challenge. Burkina Faso continues to face militant violence and displacement. And every attack has an economic cost. A destroyed road is not just a security story, it is a trade story. A displaced farming community is not just a humanitarian story, it is a food story. A closed school is not just an education story, it affects the future workforce. A business that refuses to invest because an area is unsafe is not just a business story, it means lost jobs. So the security fight will remain central to everything Traore wants to achieve. Then there is execution. Governments everywhere love announcing projects. Announcements are easy, finishing projects are harder. Maintaining them is even harder. A factory opening is exciting, but is it still producing 5 years later? A tractor handover is exciting, but are these tractors still working after 3 farming seasons? A new road is exciting, but is it maintained? A training program is good, but did the trainees find jobs? A trade agreement is impressive, but did exports actually increase? These are the questions AfriArise will continue asking, because we should not judge African governments only by speeches, and we should not judge them only by Western headlines either. We should judge them by results. Did food production increase? Did imports fall in areas where local production grew? Did exports become more valuable? Did factories create jobs? Did young people gain skills? Did farmers earn more? Did businesses grow? Did electricity improve? Did communities become safer? Did ordinary people feel the difference? That is a scoreboard. And that is why I think the next few years in Burkina Faso will be fascinating. Traore has created enormous expectations across Africa and the diaspora. Many people see him as a symbol of new generation of African leadership. That support gives you political energy, but it also creates pressure, because eventually symbolism must become results. You cannot eat sovereignty. You cannot send your child to a speech. A slogan cannot replace a salary. People need food, jobs, schools, hospitals, electricity, safe roads, business opportunity, and hope that tomorrow can be better than today. This is where the real judgment will come, and there is something else we should remember. Economic transformation takes time. China itself did not become an industrial giant in 3 years. Countries that transform their economies usually spend decades building roads, schools, factories, power systems, and skills. So it would be unrealistic to expect Burkina Faso to become a manufacturing powerhouse overnight. The better question is where the country is moving in the right direction. Are the foundations being built? Are policies connecting each other? Are mistakes being corrected? Are institutions becoming stronger? Are more Burkinabe people participating in the economy? Because if the foundation is right, both can become on top of it. And when you step back and look at the whole picture, the strategy begins to make sense. Security protects communities and economic activity. Agriculture produces food and raw materials. Factories launder materials into more valuable products. Skilled workers keep the farms and factories running. Roads move the goods. Electricity powers production. Banks finance businesses. The AES creates a bigger regional market. China and other international partners provide markets, machinery, technology, and investment. Exports bring money back, and that money can be invested again and again. That is the circle Burkina Faso appears to be trying to build. But remember, a chain is only as strong as its weakest link. If security fails, the chain suffers. If farmers cannot produce enough, factories suffer. If electricity falls, industry suffers. If businesses cannot get finance, expansion suffers. If products do not meet international standards, exports suffer. If foreign partnership becomes another form of dependence, sovereignty suffers. Everything has to move together. So, is Ibrahim Traoré building a new economic model for Burkina Faso? Is it still too early to give a final answer? But something important is happening. The conversation has changed. The question is no longer how much aid can Burkina Faso receive? It is increasingly becoming what can Burkina Faso produce? Not only who will protect Burkina Faso, but how can Burkina Faso build the economic strength needed to protect itself? Not only who will buy Burkina Faso's raw materials, but how much can Burkina Faso do with these materials before selling them? And not only which foreign power should Burkina Faso choose, but how can Burkina Faso work with many partners without surrendering control of its future? That last question may decide everything, because there is nothing wrong with working with China. There is nothing wrong with buying Chinese tractors. There is nothing wrong with Chinese investments. There is nothing wrong with selling Burkinabe products to Chinese consumers. The danger begins when a partnership becomes dependence, and the opportunity begins when a partnership helps you build your own strength. That is the line Traore must walk. If Burkina Faso can use Chinese machines to grow more food, use new market to sell more Burkinabe products, use investments to build local factories, use technical cooperation to train Burkinabe workers, use regional cooperation to create a stronger Sahel market, and use the money created by all of this to strengthen its own institutions, then China would not be the story. Burkina Faso would be the story. And that is the point. A truly successful African development model should never be about finding a new country to depend on. It should be about reaching a point where you have enough strength to choose your partners, enough food to feed your people, enough industries to create jobs, enough skills to run your economy, enough regional cooperation to expand your markets, and enough confidence to say yes when a deal serves you and no when it does not. That is sovereignty, not isolation, not refusing to work with the world, but having the power to work with the world on better terms. For Burkina Faso, this journey is only beginning. There will be setbacks, there will be criticism, there will be projects that work, there will be projects that fail, there will be pressure from inside and outside the country, but the direction deserves close attention. Because if Burkina Faso can connect security, agriculture, industry, skills, regional trade, and international partnerships into one working system, the impact could go far beyond Burkina Faso. Mali will be watching, Niger will be watching, other African countries will be watching, and so will the rest of the world. The real test will not be how loudly Ibrahim Traoré speaks about sovereignty. The real test will be whether, years from now, a Burkinabe farmer can safely work his land. Whether a young Burkinabe can find skilled work without leaving home. Whether that cotton grown in Burkina Faso can leave the country as clothing instead of raw fiber. Whether local companies can become strong enough to compete. And whether Burkina Faso can sit across the table from China, Russia, Europe, America, or anywhere else and negotiate from a stronger position. If that happens, then the story will be much bigger than tractors, much bigger than China, and much bigger than Ibrahim Traoré. It will be the story of a country trying to turn political sovereignty into economic power. And perhaps that's the question Africa has been asking for far too long. We fought for political independence, but can we now build economic independence? Burkina Faso is attempting its own answer. Whether it succeeds or fails, the answer could teach the rest of Africa a great deal. So, I want to hear from you. Do you believe Burkina Faso's growing relationship with China can help Traoré build a stronger and more independent economy? Or do you think there is a real danger of replacing old dependence with a new one? Tell us what you think in the comments. And if you believe African stories deserve deeper discussions beyond the usual headlines, subscribe to AfriArise and share this video. Here, we'll continue following Burkina Faso, the alliance of Sahel states, and the wider changes happening across our continents. Because Africa's future will not be decided by speeches alone. It will be decided by what we build. Thank you for watching. This is AfriArise. My name is Blessing Chris. See you in the next one.